DMNX has the capability to notify people when changes occur to the configuration of a device. This can be helpful to administrators to monitor or audit changes to network settings, firmware updates, authentication settings, and other device preferences. There are several steps to implement this. The first is to create a configuration alert policy. To do this, go to System, Notifications, Configuration Alerts, and create a new policy. Give it a name and select attributes to enable the items for which you want to be notified. For training purposes, we will select Remote Firmware Update, URL name, and URL. In addition, we will select most of the SMTP configuration settings. The next step will be to create a group email address with all of the people to notify if these items change. When we go back to the configuration alert, our group email is not yet listed. We first have to create a destination with that group email. Now when we go to the configuration alert, our destination is in the list. The last step in the configuration alert is to select the device or devices to monitor for changes. For training purposes, we will select all devices. The next step in the process is to create a configuration task for one of the items we are monitoring. We will create a configuration alert task for firmware update. Notice that we have a template for firmware from the Rico software server. Then we will do a check task to see if the firmware that is currently on the device needs updating. We will run the check task and then go to the task log to see its status. It is processing. While it is processing, we will create a new configuration template for applying the URL name change. Create a new template, give it a name, and select the Standard Device Preferences tab. In the General tab, we will put a URL name and URL in the web page field. Save the task. In the device's web page, we can see where this web link will show up. Select the device from the device list, select Convenient Links, and you can see where URL 1 and URL 2 are listed. They are not currently configured, so the links will not work yet. Going back to the standard device preferences, save the template. Then create a configuration task to run that template against the device. To do this, add a task, give it a name, and select the template we just created. Then add a device, and save the task. First, we will run a check task using this template. In the task log, we can see that our firmware check task has completed, and it does not match the firmware versions on the Ricoh software server. Several of the firmware items need to be updated. Our URL check task has also completed. This too does not match. Our last item that we set a configuration alert on was SMTP settings in the device. Create a standard device preferences template with those settings. Select the email category, enable email, and enter administrator email address. Then scroll down to the SMTP settings and enter the information. We have left the final settings out for privacy purposes. Next, create a configuration check task to see the settings on the device. Add a task, give it a name, and select the template we just created. Add the target devices, and save and run the check task. In the task log, we can see that the check task has completed and one of our devices has failed. Let's ignore this for now and look at the other device. It shows that the check succeeded, but the result does not match. This is expected since we haven't applied our changes yet. Now we will start applying our tasks to see the results. Going back to the URL change task, change it to an apply task and run it. In the task log, you can see that the task completed successfully. Let's look at our email to see if we were notified of the configuration change. As you can see, we received an email notifying us that the URL change task has completed. Let's look at the attached CSV file. As you can see, this shows the details of what took place. The URL name and URL changes were both checked and applied, and they both succeeded. Notice that it shows the previous device value setting of URL1, as well as the new setting of Apple. Going to the device's web image monitor page, we can see that the new URL is listed in the convenient links. The next task we will apply is the one to change the SMTP setting of the MPC 3002 device. Go to Configuration Tasks, New Task, and give it a name and description. Select Apply, and go to the Templates tab. Select the template from the list. In our case, it is the ATT email template. Go to the Target Devices tab and select the device. In this case, it is the MPC 3002. Select Save, double-check all the settings, and select Run immediately. When applying a task, it is a good idea to select Forced Reboot after template execution. Some settings require a reboot for the changes to be reflected, so it is good practice to always do this. In the task log, we can see it is processing. After a few seconds, we can see that the configuration change was applied and succeeded. Notice that the task is still processing because the device is rebooting. Checking our email, we can see that we were automatically notified of the device's SMTP changes. Last, we will apply the Remote Firmware Update task. We will find our firmware check task and change it to an apply task. Then, we will remove the previous devices and select the MPC 3002 as the target device. Then, we will save the task, check all of the settings, and run the task. In the task log, we can see it is processing. On the MFP, we can see that the firmware is being updated. After a few minutes, we can refresh the task log and see that the task finished and succeeded. Looking at the details in the task log, we can see that 4 of the firmware items were updated. When we check our email, we see that we were notified about the Remote Firmware Update task. And when we look at the attachment, we can see the details about the 4 firmware items that were updated. This shows not only the item name, but also the device's values before and after the update.